The concept intent of my core composition is Parkinson's disease. The composition explores symptoms of Parkinson's, the emotional effects of the symptoms, and the idea of dance being able to assist someone struggling with the disease. The concept for this dance stemmed from auditory and ideational stimulus. I heard a radio interview that talked about the remedial effects that engaging in dance can have on sufferers of Parkinson's. After looking into the different aspects of Parkinson's disease, I generated movements that literally represented the symptoms, such as tremors and retracing steps, and the emotional effects that having the condition can cause, such as frustration and humiliation. I used abstraction of the improvised movements to form the motifs of the dance. The first motif represents the symptoms as well as the emotional effects of the disease. The dancer is lying with their back on the floor. The hand moves from a relaxed position to second with a shaking vibratory movement, then pushes across the chest, forcing the body to roll to the side into a curled, contracted position. The arm is then brought back across the chest and out to second position, and the body is recovered. The shaking movement of the hands depicts the trembling that Parkinson's sufferers experience in everyday life. I used exploration and improvisation to discover movements to replicate this motif using different body parts, such as trembling the legs into an extended position sitting on the floor. The roll to the side and recover represents the insecurity and lack of coordination in many sufferers' movements and the tendency to retrace steps. The curled, contracted position of the body represents the embarrassment, frustration, and hopelessness felt by sufferers of Parkinson's. Curling the body over the knees in a kneeling position manipulates this motif through staging, as the dancer is facing a different direction. The phrases of movement are linked through transitions, which assist the progression of the dance through the various sections. These transitions include turns, such as the arabesque turn, and rolls such as the roll in second. These transitions of turning and rolling movements can also be used to communicate the disorientation and feeling of entrapment that can stem from Parkinson's disease. My second motif is generated by abstracting literal movements that represented freedom and release to show the aiding effects of dancing and defiance against the symptoms. Through selection and refinement, I chose to portray this through a releve and arabesque with clenched fists, followed by a waltzing balance turn. The motif is manipulated using force, tempo, background, and the directional aspect of space. For example, the releve with clenched fist is altered to become a slower, less forceful movement with the leg and attitude, while still portraying the idea of freedom. The waltzing movement is then manipulated using direction to be performed in a travelling manner to the side and within a turn at various stages in the latter part of the composition. The formal structure of the composition falls into the category of rondo. The beginning section of the dance, formed around the exploration of the symptoms, is returned to throughout the subsequent sections, which explore the emotional effects of the disease and the remedial aspects of dancing. To communicate the symptoms of Parkinson's, I manipulated the element of space and used instrumentation to show the presence of the symptoms across many levels, planes, and spaces. This represents the presence of symptoms in all aspects of a sufferer's daily life. I manipulated the accent and momentum of the movements to portray the feelings initiated by the disease. To complement this element of the dance, the weight and force of the movements also changed. To portray the feeling of freedom accompanying the release of symptoms, I used high-level movements and manipulated the dynamic to contrast that of the movements conveying the symptoms and effects of the disease. The use of high-level and open-shaped movements, such as the split leap in second, adds variation to the composition.